lost comms on diver 1. Attendant, can you come up on the diver's umbilical, please? No comms, diver 1.
One call given, no response.
We jump to standby, please. I've lost comms, diver 1. Can I jump to standby, please? No comms, diver 1.
Coming standby.
The standby diver on the left screen is ready to dive. The standby diver on the right isn't. Remember, serious brain damage can occur after 3 minutes without air, and it takes valuable minutes to get the diver back to the boat. A standby diver must be prepared to act swiftly to recover a diver in an emergency. In most locations in the world, standby divers are required to be present during occupational diving operations. Wherever possible, they need to be located on the surface and be dressed and equipped to enable immediate entry into the water with a minimum of delay. The standby diver must be practiced and experienced because the dive team depends on them.
Come on, get the standby in the water!
Your role as a standby diver is to help the diver as soon as possible, because even after 30 seconds or a minute without an air supply, most people, unless they're very experienced apnea, breath hold divers, most people after a minute are feeling pretty uncomfortable. After a minute and a half, 2 minutes are getting very panicky, even if they're still alive. So your chances of helping yourself and your chances of being a good victim and easy to rescue actually also diminish with every minute. So it is very important to have the physical preparedness, the mental preparedness, and the logistics around you to be able to get to the diver as soon as possible.
Good morning, fellas. Just to go over quickly what we're here for today.
A standby diver needs to be well practiced in handling a diver rescue effectively and have a basic knowledge of the steps to be taken in treating a medical emergency. They need to have a thorough understanding of the risk assessment of the task and site. The right attitude is essential. A standby diver cannot have a gas load that would prevent them from recovering a diver at the team's working depth. Like all divers, the standby diver must be free of all drugs and alcohol.
One, diver 2. 2 attendants, please. Are we fit to dive?
Fit to dive.
Okay, we're good to...
They need to have a current diving medical certificate and a diver certificate of competency. They need a thorough understanding of rescue techniques and a working knowledge of the work task and equipment being used. A standby diver must be ready to go when needed. The standby diver's attendant needs to ensure that the standby diver is dressed safely, efficiently, and checked before the dive begins. It is also important to consider the standby diver's welfare, making sure they're well hydrated, protected from sun exposure, heat, and cold. Acting quickly can make the difference in saving someone's life, or not. Being fully prepared can be equally as important. Do a final visual check before entering the water. The rescue process will need to become second nature and be implemented a lot faster than what is depicted in this video. The standby diver should follow the diver's lifeline without pulling the line and maintain constant contact with the supervisor during the rescue. Upon reaching the victim, the rescuer should pause momentarily. They need to assess the situation and any hazards before proceeding further. Is the rescuer about to put themselves in the same danger? This needs to be assessed by the standby diver before taking further action. The standby diver needs to continually paint a visual picture for those on the surface. This should be clear and concise.
Helmet is dry. Diver 1 seems to be unconscious but some light breathing.
If the victim is conscious, the rescuer must assess the victim's mental state and then proceed in a manner that does not induce panic, increase the victim's pain, or complicate existing injuries and the rescue process. If the victim is unconscious, a series of precautionary measures must be carried out before the diver is recovered to the surface.
Checking for a response.
The standby diver will need to check for a response. If the diver is unconscious or there is suspicion of bad air, the diver's bailout supply will need to be turned on. This overrides the main supply in case there is a problem with the air source. Purge the regulator in case there is any water trapped inside. The rescuer must assess the victim's state of buoyancy. Familiarity with the inherent buoyancy characteristics of the gear will help the standby diver during the recovery. When being assisted by attendants, the standby diver can deflate the dry suit and BCD to help control the ascent. The standby diver should position themselves so they can access the diver's equipment while maintaining the diver's airway.
Diver one's head back.
In some instances, voice communications may have failed during the dive. Standby divers need to be confident with lifeline signals and be able to communicate effectively with the attendant.
Up on diver slack, diver's coming up, requesting assistance.
To avoid barotraumas, the ascent must be controlled by either the standby diver or the attendants. Uncontrolled ascents must be avoided. Letting attendants control the ascent is a safer option, especially in low visibility, as it is difficult for the rescue diver to judge the ascent rate in these conditions. Attendants must limit any unnecessary slack and prevent restrictions of the lifeline. They must actively listen to comms and acknowledge any directions given by the dive supervisor.
Up on diver slack, diver's coming up.
Flaring fins can be used to slow down the ascent if needed. The surface team will be monitoring the ascent rate and will be providing guidance to the standby diver. On the surface, the diver may inflate the BCD or release the weight belt to help retrieve the victim from the water. Every circumstance may require a different action. When at the recovery point, the standby diver should assist in accordance with the emergency management plan.
One of the greatest deficiencies I've seen in practical rescue is the physical handling of a person who's not able to help themselves out of the water onto safe ground, and that's often really, really difficult. So the best way to get an appreciation for that difficulty and work out whether you have adequate equipment, whether you need a stretcher, whether you need a slide or a sling or some assistance, and where to stand, how to do it, is actually just to do it yourself and practice. So that doesn't, I don't think, need to be included in every standby drill, but it needs to be done for different venues, different dive platforms, different team configurations.
In some circumstances, where two divers are in the water at the same time, one may act as standby diver for the other, provided that at all times both divers have no decompression commitment and have visual contact with and direct access to each other. This is best done by ensuring divers are tethered to each other, or alternatively, surface and follow the other's lifeline. For in-water standby, the standby diver needs to be able to move directly to the diver in trouble. An emergency is no time to start a search for a diver. So let's take a look at the procedure again for the out-of-water standby diver, and let's assume it's you. Are you experienced enough to be the standby diver? Are you ready to go? Follow the lifeline to the diver. Assess the danger as you approach the diver. Clearly communicate all actions to the supervisor. Check to see if the diver is conscious or responsive. Ensure there is a supply of gas to the diver. Adjust buoyancy according to the environment and emergency rescue plan. Position yourself for the recovery, maintaining the diver's airway. Assist with the recovery on the surface. Remember that your life or the life of your teammates may be dependent on the standby diver being alert and ready to go when needed. Practice these skills whenever you can in the workplace and record those practices in your diver's logbook.